Welcome to another episode of Real Folk Mississippi, where we search the state to find positive people doing positive things. If you're looking for negativity, you're not going to find it here. I'm your host, Vincent Kirkland, and I want to say, thanks for all the support. Be sure to like and subscribe because we're going to keep going with this as long as you guys are enjoying it. So we're back. As you can see, we're in the classroom, and we are back to teaching. The year is started, everybody is in, and we have a teacher here with us, the man, the myth, the legend.
You can drop the legend part. Yeah,
drop the legend? Okay.
Yeah.
The man, the myth.
The man, the myth. Yeah, I'll be the myth now.
Okay.
I'll be the legend when I retire.
Okay, nice.
That way everyone can be like, oh, remember that guy? That guy.
And they don't really know.
That guy.
I got you.
I want to be the story.
The man, the myth, the story.
The story. The good stories, though. I don't want to be the bad
Not
stories.
the bad story.
No.
But can you, when you're talking about, kids, especially, junior high school, can you really control that? Do they just say whatever?
They do whatever. So I do this thing where I start rumors about myself on purpose. Because, I learned this from one of my other coworkers a long time ago about, they're going to make rumors about you anyway. So you might as well put some rumors out there about yourself. Just go ahead.
Some epic stuff.
Yeah.
He lifted a tree with one hand.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
He threw a file cabinet across the room.
Exactly.
With one hand.
Yeah. I tell my kids now, I have really good aim with my expo markers.
Nice.
I will throw them at you.
Do you ever get kids who go home and they're like, oh, Mr. Bay said he's going to throw markers at us. I don't like that. Or do they understand your humor?
Yeah, most of them get my humor.
Yeah.
One kid did go home and do that, and his mom called me, and she said, please do it.
Wow.
Throw markers at him. If he's not paying attention, throw markers at him. And my aim got so good that year.
There you go.
Because I just, without even looking at him, across the room, just chunked the mark at him. Yeah.
See, and that's a little bit like my teachers had the same thing, and it wasn't a sign of disrespect. It was, hey, I'm up here for 8 hours a day, teaching my heart out to you. The least you can do is pay attention.
Is just listen. So, I have those expectations in my classroom.
Okay.
And I don't have all these 27,000 different rules. And, that's what some teachers live on.
Yeah.
Are all these different rules. And,
yeah.
If that's their classroom, okay. If that's what works for them, okay.
Yeah.
But, in my classroom, I have 3 expectations.
Okay.
First expectation is everyone has a voice, know when to use it.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have classroom discussions in here.
Okay.
And I tell my students, we're going to argue because I want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you.
Nice.
So make sure that you use your voice appropriately.
Okay.
And then number 2 is respect the voices and opinions of others.
Okay.
Because if they're having a conversation, I don't want one student to just suddenly jump up and say that someone else is wrong for whatever reason. And then of course, those are my first 2 most important ones.
All right.
And then my third one is only up there just because some of them, they are still children for the most part.
Of course. They don't think they are.
Right. And, even with my 6th graders, I had to just constantly remind myself, these are just kids.
Yeah.
They are just kids. And so I have my third expectation of keep your hands, feet, and belongings to yourself.
Do you think, and this is something that I always try to tell kids, especially when they get up to, 7th, 8th grade, it's like, guys, if you really pay attention, these are the same rules that we're telling you since kindergarten.
Yeah.
Keep your hands and feet to yourself.
Yeah.
Listen. Okay, don't talk unless you raise your hand. These same things. And so I feel like, do you feel like they just forget from year to year, or do they just get tired of hearing the same thing, or what is it?
Yeah, so I think they get tired of hearing the same thing.
Okay.
We went over an entire PowerPoint at the beginning of the school year that our district wanted us to do of all of our different classroom rules, classroom expectations, school-wide rules, school-wide expectations, and there was about 50-something different rules on there.
Ooh,
and
that's a lot of rules, man.
So I went through all the rules with my students, and then I said, listen, all of these boil down to be safe, be responsible, be respectful.
There you go.
Every single one of those different rules, if you remember those 3 things, you're going to do perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And so, as long as they just do those, they're going to do great.
Yeah.
And every single time someone messes up in my class, I don't say, hey, stop doing that. I say, what's my third expectation or what's my first expectation?
Got you. Okay.
So, that's why I have them posted in my classroom at all times. It just builds a better connection with the students from the very beginning, instead of just having all these different things of like, don't chew gum, don't talk when I'm talking, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Instead of telling them what not to do, I tell them what to do. And I kind of hope that builds a little bit better of a rapport with the students.
Yeah.
And they start to connect with me a little bit earlier because they see that I'm different.
So, like, where did you get your teaching style from? Was there a teacher that impressed you enough to where you were just like, okay, I'm going to take from them? Was there a teacher that you grew up with that you liked, and that you still sort of remember and pull from how they made you feel? Like, what was your inspiration for becoming a teacher, and what style do you use?
So my inspiration is a little bit selfish.
Okay.
So
Well, I'm glad we were starting.
yeah, I'll be honest here.
Yeah.
It started selfish.
Okay.
So I was in psychology, and I got my bachelor's degree in psychology.
Okay.
And I was looking at kind of going like the school psychology route, just because my dad was a teacher
Yes.
and he was a principal, and I kind of grew up in that area.
Yeah.
And I was good with it. I kind of understood all the research. I understood what was going on. But I got tired of reading all the research of people that were doing research with students in classrooms, with schools, and they had never spent a day in the classroom actually teaching.
Okay.
And so I thought, I'm going to do this different. Instead of just going straight on to my master's, I'm going to go into teaching first. I'm going to teach for 5 years, get some experience under my belt.
Okay.
That way, go back and work on my master's, do research, coming from someone who has actually spent time in the classroom.
Got you.
So I got an alternate route degree, I started teaching, and I just kind of fell in love with it.
Really?
I enjoy making connections with students. I love it when I'm talking to a student and trying to help them through something. And they just get it. They finally get that. It's that aha moment. And I love that with students.
Moment,
yeah, those light bulbs. And it's just so different. And I'm thinking, if I go back and start doing research, then I lose this.
Gotcha.
And so I'm like, I can't do that. So I kept on going and going. And now I'm working on my master's in administration. And,
Nice.
I want to move up that chain as far as possible. Because I know that change is only going to happen if I start from, the top.
Understand.
But starting here, keeping on going. But like role models in teaching, there's not a single role model because I have so many different role models with teaching. So like my dad was a principal and I watched everything that he did. I would go and hang out with him at school.
Wow.
Over the summers, granted, he bribed me with Mazios.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so me and my brother would go and help him during the summers, like shredding papers, organizing different things. And we would always, like, kind of around lunchtime, we'd be like, so, what's for lunch? He's like, I guess I'll take you to Mazios. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So watching my dad and kind of looking to see what he did as an administrator, and then especially once he retired, he became a consultant with Bailey Education.
Okay.
And he started looking back on his own practices as a teacher and administrator. And at that point, I was in the alternate route program.
Okay.
And so he and I would have all those different conversations about what he would go back and change and just how he would do things differently. And I've kind of take that and put that into my own style. But then as soon as I started teaching, I was always looking at all of my different coworkers, looking to see what they're doing and everything. And my first principal, my second principal that I had at Earl Trevelyan, when I first came to Earl Trevelyan, she terrified me. Just completely and utterly terrified me.
Okay.
But I am only half the teacher I am today because, she held my feet to the fire.
Gotcha.
She forced me to step out of my comfort zones as a teacher and forced me to become a much, much better teacher.
Okay.
And, I look back on it and I think, where would I be without that encouragement, without, that mentality?
Yeah. That's, and, I hear a lot of, it's kind of the same thing with coaching. You hear the students and athletes that go, look, if my coach wasn't tough on me, then I wouldn't have developed the ethic that I have for this, and so different people find inspiration from different, places, and that's really interesting to see. So now we've gone on, like, let me ask you this, probably should have been one of the first questions I asked you, but you know how it is. What do you teach?
So I teach English.
Yes.
So my first year teaching, I taught ACT prep, which is kind of cool because I could do 4 different subjects in one class.
Okay.
I could do reading, I could do writing, I could do English, I could do science, I could do math. If I got tired of math, I could swap over and do science the next week.
It wasn't boring. Like
Yeah,
you could-
I could be like, you know what? I'm getting really tired of doing English.
Yeah.
Let's do math next week.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it was like trigonometry. So I went, I was talking to my girlfriend at the time, and she was a math teacher. I'm like, hey, listen, I need some help on this. So that's, I went and got a lot of help from her, like learning how to do a lot of the different higher level math stuff.
Good, yeah.
But, you
Nice.
know, that was a really fun experience. That was kind of, you know, where I first started to feel that, you know, I enjoy making these connections with these students.
Okay.
So then after that, I went to do 5th and 6th grade English for 4 years.
Okay.
And now I'm doing 8th grade English.
Nice. So, has there ever been like a time where you almost like hung it up? Because I know that teachers are under, you know, a lot of stress, and you know, you hear different stories about, hey, you know, I'm hanging on by a thread. So, what moments have you experienced with that, and how did you get through it?
I cannot tell you how many times, you know,
Really?
I've thought about it. Yeah.
Wow.
Just like sitting there in the classroom during a stressful day.
Yeah.
Just like the kids just won't get it right. They just won't do right. Just everything goes wrong in that day. And it's like, I can't do this. I've sat there in class before while the students are supposed to be working, and I've looked up other job opportunities.
Wow.
I mean, that's how bad it's gotten before. But for one, I don't like breaking contracts.
I got you.
And,
You might. Yeah.
That
Might not wanna
I
do
always
that.
have
Might
that
not
fear.
wanna
Like,
do that.
and I have this mentality of if I start something, I'm going to finish it.
Makes sense.
I do not like leaving things unfinished.
Yeah.
And so that's always been a big part of it is
Okay.
I don't like leaving things unfinished. And then another one is no matter how bad the school is, no matter how bad anything is, there's still going to be one life that I can change.
Yeah.
And if there's that one life
It's worth it.
anywhere in that, then
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best to make sure that I get to that one student and make sure that they have the best school experience that they can get.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's good. And you know, you always hear, you know, it's not the money. You
Yeah.
know, it's not the money.
It's not the money. No.
It's definitely the connection, you know, that you make with students that you know need it. You know, and what I've learned is, you know, it's not so much about the socioeconomic status. It's more about, you know, the connection that you
Yeah.
can make. You know, when a kid comes in and they hear, you know, like you have some Star Wars stuff up here. It could be a kid comes, oh man, you like Star Wars? Boom, you got them. You know, they're your favorite teacher for the rest of the year.
And so, like, what all I do is I try to do so much stuff in my personal life
Yeah.
so that whenever kids come in and they're into that thing, I can connect with them about that.
Yes.
Like I told them the very first day, I go hiking, I go fishing, I go hunting, I play video games, I read books, I watch movies. I do all of these different things. And they're like, wow, you do a lot of stuff. And I said, yeah, because I want to be able to connect with my students.
Yes.
I don't like football. I don't like baseball. I mean,
How
I'm
dare
sorry.
you?
I'm sorry.
You are in the South. How dare you say so? That's blasphemy.
I'm sorry. I gotta say, but you know what? I got a bulldog sitting over there on my desk
Nice.
because I want to be able to make that connection with my students. Whenever they're getting ready for their football game, I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like, what position are you going to play?
Yeah.
And I know enough about a lot of different things where I can connect with the students
Good.
in that area, and I do whatever I can.
Yeah. And that's, you know, I've heard and seen teachers, you know, stay till, you know, hours and hours after school just so that they can get prepared for something else that doesn't even have to do with their lesson.
Yeah.
Or it may be something that is a part of their lesson, but they're putting a big spin on it where they're like, we're going to go outside, we're going to plan a trip, all to make that connection.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think that if, especially when it comes to education, if you want to make that connection, you can.
Yeah.
It depends on the amount of effort that you
Yeah.
put in. You know, it doesn't really matter about, oh, your background or this or that. It's about how much effort that you
Whatever you put into education, you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I started noticing, like, about midway through my third year, into my fourth year of teaching, or my fifth year of teaching. I don't know. They all run together at this point.
Yeah.
It's it's just 1 year after the next.
Yeah.
But like I got to the point where I was just putting in the absolute minimum, just getting there, getting to work, I used to have one of my old teachers describe it as survival mode. Like, you
Yes.
just do whatever you can to make it to the next day. I'm like, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Teachers are always talking about how they want to be treated as professionals. And so I started taking a look at myself and like, how am I dressing when I go to work? And so at that point, I
Looking
had
at
gotten,
yourself first.
I looked at myself and like, what do I need to do better? And so, used to when I first started teaching, it was suit and tie every single day.
Woo.
And then it started
That's a
to
big commitment, man.
yeah, it
Man.
started to peter out just a little bit.
Yeah.
Even on jean days, I would wear like a button down with a tie with the jeans. I'm like, because I want to present myself in this way.
Right.
But then like everything just started to demoralize me, and I was getting lower and lower, and like I was just like, my shirt was untucked.
Yeah.
I untucked my shirt.
Uh-oh.
Man, like that was bad. I wore tennis shoes. Like, oof. No.
Really? So it would
Yeah.
get to you?
Yeah, like it would
Really?
and then like, and then I started whenever I realized I was going to go ahead and start looking for a new job.
Okay.
I'm like, I need to fix myself. And
What
so
do you mean by that? Fix yourself? Like what?
my presentation,
Okay.
how I present myself.
Okay.
I want to be known as a professional.
Okay.
So I need to present myself as a professional.
Gotcha.
So I decided Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, suit and tie. Wednesdays are my throwaway days.
I got you.
And
Yeah.
then Fridays are jean days.
So you figured the balance.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
figured out that balance. I'm like, I can't do this every single day. So my whole thing, what I was putting into education was what I wanted to get out of it at that point, and I just was not putting in enough.
Okay.
But then, like, yeah, there is still that balance. I don't stay until 5 and 6 because I do have a life at home.
Yeah.
But I try to do other things to make sure that I'm figuring out that balance. If it's 10 minutes on my planning period, I don't really just like stop and take a break for 10 minutes.
Okay.
I just go ahead and like do whatever little thing that I can so that I can, have a
Gotcha.
little bit more time later.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about what I'm putting into it. I want to be known as a professional so that I'm presenting myself as a professional.
Okay. So you talked a lot about the outside influences that you have, the hiking, all that stuff. How much do you think culture plays a part in the education process as far as keeping a kid's attention?
So culture is going to be a big part of it.
Okay.
And it's how they're raised sometimes too, because the way that you look at it is some families just it's not a big thing, especially socioeconomically. If you've got family of a blue collar worker, most likely those students are going to move into some sort of trade job,
Yeah.
and they're just
I see that a lot. Yes.
they don't really worry about being able to read in class. They
Yeah.
don't worry about x equals negative b, all
Yeah.
that stuff. And so it's just we get to the point where we have to make it to where they might see that they need it.
Do you think, okay, and this is where it is a good, do you think that they have a point? And this is what I mean by that. There is the thing that I hear at a lot of schools from kids is, Mr. Kirk, I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to use this when I leave here. So why in the world am I learning it now? And, you give the typical answers. But at the end of the day, sometimes I must admit, I kind of agree
Yeah.
with them. So how do you make that connection with the student when they have a point?
Yeah. So
And-
I can't speak for math.
Okay, all right.
So honestly, I have
you just
no
throw them
idea.
out there, okay.
I'm going to throw math under the bus.
Okay.
I have
Watch
no
your back
idea.
to when this
Yeah.
comes out.
I know. So all the math. I mean, my wife's a math teacher. So,
Well, watch your back when you
know.
go home.
Yeah, so like a lot of the things with English
Mm-hmm.
are things that they can use later on.
Okay.
So every time we do vocabulary, I don't tell them, get out a dictionary and look up the definition.
Okay.
Because that skill is not going to help them later in life.
Okay.
Instead, I have a process. Look at the word, look around the word, look beyond the word. And I
Okay.
tell them, if you apply this everywhere you go, you can find the definitions of words without looking it up.
Okay.
Ask yourself, does this look like anything I've seen before? Then ask yourself, is it defined somewhere else in the passage? And
Okay.
finally ask yourself, what is the context of the entire passage or the entire paragraph? And so I tell them, you take that and use it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Whenever we're reading and they're like, I don't know why we're reading, we're not going to use this. I say, okay, what do you want to do with your life when you get out of school? Football, driving a tractor, whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
I tell them, okay, listen, at some point in your life, whether you are a football player or whether you drive a tractor for the rest of your life, you are going to have to read something. You are going to have to sign away your life to something.
Very good.
You are going to have to understand what that contract is.
Yes.
And just especially like with football players, you got to sign that contract. You're going to want to make sure you understand all the fine print in there.
Yes.
The skills that I teach you in here about reading analysis and digging deep into a text, when you're older, you're going to want to be able to do that in your sleep. And so when you take a look at that contract for the football team, for maybe you need to get out a loan for buying something else new.
That's true.
Taking out a loan on a house. I told my students the other day, mortgage, that word literally means death signature. And so,
Okay, never heard it put that way.
yeah,
Yes.
so that prefix of mort is death. And so, like, you're literally signing away your life.
Man.
And so it's like, any way that I can help them understand that. I do another skill with them that I call word gradient,
Okay.
where they look at a list of words that are all synonyms.
Okay.
And I ask them to put them in order of context, of order of feeling, basically. So what I do a lot with them is words that mean old. And I ask them, so I give them like old, ancient, aged, stuff like that.
Okay.
And so then I tell them, put these in order from least offensive to most offensive if you're going to call someone old.
Yeah.
Because I want them to be able to see how, if they're reading something, the context of something can change based on whatever word is used in that specific spot. Because I want them to grow up, be able to look at the news, listen to the news, read things and understand things. Look at the subcontext. What is this person actually saying? What is the point that they are actually making to me? Everything that I do for them, I try to prepare them to be successful members of society.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you talked a little bit about making sure that when there's a discussion going on, that the kids are making sure that they're respecting everybody's opinion. Mm-hmm. In a world right now where, everybody has an opinion about everything.
Yeah.
And if you do not agree with me, then you are the enemy. Like,
Right.
do you find any sort of harsh conversations that you've had to have and sort of get in the middle, like, okay, guys, this is kind of, this is where it is, this is where this is, and let's make sure we respect. Are there any hard conversations that you had to have?
Yeah, so Fridays I do debates.
Okay,
And,
nice.
or at least most Fridays. I didn't this last Friday because I just wanted to do a different fun Friday bell ringer.
Understandable, yeah.
But yeah, so on Fridays I do debates.
Okay.
And in those different debates, the students are allowed to specifically call out other students on what they gave in their part. They say, I disagree
wow.
with you because blank.
Okay.
And I give them, you have 30 seconds to give your part. Okay? We're going to give 2 people from this side of the argument, 2 people from this side of the argument.
All right.
You got 30 seconds, go.
Uh-huh.
And the students are able to have that discourse back and forth. And yeah, I mean, there's been times when my students, they get a little bit more harsh with it. Mm-hmm. And so I have to say, remember, my expectations here, you are respecting the voices and opinions of others. Mm-hmm. You may not disagree with it. And if you don't disagree with it, then respond respectfully.
Okay.
And so once I've had to step in this year and just kind of say, listen, we're done with this debate today.
Nice.
We're
Yeah.
just going to have to be done with it.
I think, being able to have hard discussions is one of the backbones of our society. If we can't do that, then we really lose the ability to learn from each other. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm a big advocate of debating, So what was the class, like when you were in school, what was the class that had the biggest impact on you or the biggest teacher? Do you remember a class where you're like, man, this is amazing?
Yeah, so it'd probably be in college.
Okay, all right.
It was once I got to college. He was Professor Emeritus Stanley Hauer. And
That's a handful, yeah.
yeah, so I don't remember what Professor Emeritus means. I think it has something to do with like he's the oldest one on campus. I don't know. He told us
Okay.
once, but I forgot.
All right.
And he'd probably be mad at me because he was the history of the English language teacher. And
Was he the oldest teacher? Okay.
I think he was.
Wow.
I think he was.
Okay.
But he was so dedicated to what he was doing.
Okay.
There was one time he came into class and he's like, listen, guys, this is going to be a really short lesson.
Okay.
I know I've got you for the next 50 minutes, but I'm going to leave in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
I've got bleeding on the left side of my brain and I'm going to the hospital. But I wanted to come here and teach you this one thing first. And we're like, we're glad that you did that, but go,
to the
please. Do you
hospital,
need someone
yeah.
to drive you? And he taught us that one thing and he left. And, seeing that dedication, especially from a college professor,
Yeah.
when a lot of the times college professors, they'll take off because it's their cat's birthday
Yeah.
or something like that. To see that, it's like, I need to put that into my own life. I need to make sure that like when I take on a classroom, I need to be there. My first year teaching, I took 2 days off my entire time.
Wow.
Last year, I took 6 days off just because there were a lot of different things going on. But I always make sure if I am here, then the students learn.
Yeah.
If I'm not here, they're not learning.
That's true because substitutes for, and hats off to substitute
Yeah.
teachers, man, because they have it rough.
They have it so bad, and
Yeah.
I feel bad for substitute teachers, and
Yeah.
it's hard to get them, and especially when they see that phone call at 6 o'clock in the morning, I probably wouldn't want to get up either.
I did substitute teaching for a year,
Yeah.
and wow,
It's
it's rough.
You're coming into a classroom where those students have already made a connection with the teacher, and you have about 10 seconds to make a connection with them
Yes,
before all of it either is great for the rest of the day or terrible for the rest of the day.
that's 100%.
And substitute teachers, I wouldn't be able to do my job without them because
Yeah.
then I wouldn't be able to take those days off that I need to. Like I went to go visit my niece a lot last year, and I wouldn't be able to do that without those substitute teachers. So
Yeah.
definitely hats off to them.
Yeah, so when you look at like students and the particular, like, let's say we talked about culture, we talked about the student-teacher connection. When you have a student that is struggling, let's say with some things that are outside of the classroom, from an emotional standpoint, like how do you deal with that? Because I've always said, the teacher's the first counselor that a student will see that day.
Yeah.
And so how do you balance like that sort of thing? Have you had instances where you've had to maybe stop class, or you've had to maybe make sure and call home, make sure they're doing okay? And like, how does that like go for you? How do you work through that?
Yeah, so it's all about like making sure that those students know that I can be there for them.
Okay.
I want to be the one that they do come to first.
Okay.
Because, of course, the counselor,
Yeah.
the counselor's always there, but
Yeah.
the counselor's on the other side of the school.
Yes.
I want them to know that I can at least be a mediator for that. And so, yeah, I've called home before. I've checked on students. If a student's just looking really down that day, I'll call them over. I'll make sure they're doing all right. I'll step outside with them for just 1 second,
Yeah.
catch them wherever they're going, anywhere. Just let them know that I'm there for them.
Gotcha.
And doing whatever I can. And it's the little things too, like making sure that they get their jacket from the gym. If a student forgot their jacket, she had her glasses in it, and like I stopped, I tried to make sure that I contacted the coach, like, listen, her jacket's in there. That way, when it's bigger stuff that comes up, they're a lot more willing to come to me.
Okay.
So whatever I can do for them, I do, so that when I do have those big issues happen, I'm there for them, and they know that I'm a reasonable person to come to.
Okay. So like when we talked about schools and what goes into it. Let me ask you this: what with the teacher rate the way it is, you see a lot of teachers moving and things like that. In your opinion, like what goes into having a good teacher environment and making it to a place where you say, yeah, I want to stay here forever?
So something that I like to see from administrators is, number one, they don't look at the students as a bunch of different scores on a test.
Okay. Okay.
I want to be able to see how this principal is right there in the beginning when the students are walking in.
Okay.
They're greeting every single student. and those students know that everyone on that campus knows who they are for good reasons.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of students that everyone knows their name for terrible, terrible reasons.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, that's true.
Like the principal asked me at the beginning of the school year, the first day, it's like, whose names have you learned first? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you already know whose names I've learned.
Yeah.
But, I want to see that from the principals, from the administration, like taking the time to get to know students as well. Like if the teachers are getting to know the students, the administrators will as well.
Okay.
And I also want to see where principals are kind of letting the teachers have autonomy in their own classroom, but still providing them with all of the different professional development that they need, as well as understanding that teachers have to develop some type of life, school, home balance.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing for a principal because there's so much fire on principals to make
Yes.
sure that they change the schools.
Yes.
And I'm not even a principal yet, and I already see that.
Yeah, you can see it.
And being able to see those principals, take that fire, but not distribute it out to the teachers. Like, get the teachers on their toes. Like,
Yeah.
make sure the teachers are doing what they need to be doing.
Don't burn them alive.
Right.
Yeah.
But, don't let all of that onto them. You can change a school by doing what you need to do and not, send all that fire out to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like, let's move away from the classroom. Let's get to know Adam Bates, the person. So
Okay.
I keep referencing this picture in
Yeah.
the corner. So this is Star Wars,
Okay.
of course.
Yeah.
And is this Rogue One?
This is Rogue One. This
Okay.
was, and either you're gonna lose viewers over this, or you're gonna gain viewers over this.
All
I
right,
don't
go
know.
ahead.
That is the best Star Wars movie ever made. So
All right, ladies and gentlemen, interview is over. Let's really.
yeah.
Well, wait
so
a minute.
out of all of the different Star Wars movies,
Okay, now I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Prequels.
prequels,
I respect the prequels.
I respect
okay?
the prequels too. I'm an English teacher, so I can dig down to. But if you've got like the next 30 hours to do a podcast with me,
I got
then
you.
yeah, I could explain that.
Okay.
Like I can dig down into a lot of different stuff.
Okay.
With the prequels, with the Phantom Menace, and
Man, that was bad.
You know.
Qui-Gon Jinn held that movie together.
it's surprising that they got the movie made in general. So like I don't know if you've seen all the different backstories with it, but like the guy that played Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor, he kept on making lightsaber sounds during the fight, and they had to go back and digitally remove those. And then
Really?
with Qui-Gon Jinn, with Liam Neeson, he had already done he had already done fencing training with different HEMA instructors to prepare for his movie Rob Roy.
Okay.
And so when they handed him a lightsaber, he already knew what to do.
Okay.
And
Go
so,
ahead,
like,
Liam
he was
Neeson.
so much better than everyone else there.
Okay.
And they had to dial back what he was allowed to do on stage.
Really?
Yeah, so, like, between both of them doing that, it's like, it's a surprise that they got that movie made at
That's
all.
interesting. Wow. And Jar Jar Binks. Everyone. Like,
Yeah.
why?
And then everyone's like, oh, Jar Jar is terrible because he's the comedic relief of Star
Yes.
Wars. Okay, so is C-3PO.
That's-
so is all of these
Okay.
other characters.
That's true.
I mean,
That's true.
it's a space odyssey. How are you going to go without some type of comedic relief?
That's okay. No, I understand what you're saying. I will say this. I am more of a fan of the world of Star Wars than the movies. Sometimes the movies are hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
I love them, but it's just something they can't get right. Like they can't. I don't understand like what it is. You have like Lucas who, he has the story, but maybe he shouldn't be the director. Maybe he
Yeah.
should be a producer.
Yeah.
And then these last ones, I just didn't know what was going on. I was just like, okay,
J.J. Abrams set up some great stuff.
he did, but he didn't
set
see it
this
through.
up to where he had some great angles. I was really looking forward to it. It took me watching that movie 4 times before I liked it because I kind of had to set up
the one he directed.
Yeah, so J.J. Abrams' first one, and so I'm like,
Okay, we
the
disagree.
first time I saw it, I hated it because spoiler alert, Han Solo dies,
Yeah,
and
I still hate it.
I know, like, it was actually spoiled for me right before I walked into the movie theater.
How?
Another guy was leaving, and he's like, "Man, I can't believe they killed off Han Solo."
Oh,
And
no.
all of us are waiting in line. Like, it was premiere night.
Did somebody like...
So, like, 40 people all
Choke
heard
him?
that right before we walked in there.
I'm surprised he got out of there.
Yeah, well, none of us wanted to get out of line. This was before, like,
That's a good point.
this was before you bought the exact seat. So,
Yes.
like, wherever you walked in is where you got to sit. And so, like,
Yes.
me and my friends were
I
about
remember that.
15 back.
Okay.
So we were going to be the first 20 people walking in.
Nice.
Me, my friends, and this other random guy that we picked up in line somewhere.
Okay.
Like,
Whatever.
and so we were right there. He said it right there, and like, man, if I didn't want to lose my spot, you're not making it to your car.
Yeah, dude. That's wow.
And so, like, you know, he set up so much good stuff.
He did.
Um,
I wish Luke would have been the one who grabbed that lightsaber out of the snow. That would have changed. That would have saved the whole movie.
That'd have been great. And I was fine with that. Like, everyone's all about, oh no, Finn should not have been able to wield the lightsaber. But if you go and read the novelizations of it,
He had the force.
he had the training,
Yeah.
and I'm
We're
so mad
geeking
about
out
his
right
arc.
now.
Like, his whole arc as a stormtrooper was ruined by the second movie. If
That
you remove
made
him,
me angry.
if you remove him from that movie, the movie would still be the exact same.
Yep.
Finn, Rose, and that hacker
Rose
guy.
Tico.
If you remove them from the movie would be the exact same,
Yeah.
no matter what.
So like you look at like Jedis, and they always have, and or just Jedis period have a master and an apprentice. People who are teaching and people who are learning, and you bring that into the classroom. What have been some surprise? You ever had that like student or a couple of students where they know more than you anticipated, like that they knew, and do you? I know a lot of some teachers will take that person under their wing, sort of like, man.
Yeah.
Like, have you had one of some of those experiences?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So my first year at my previous school, there was a girl that I had that completely finished all of her different iReady lessons. I didn't even know that you could finish it. I really didn't.
Wow.
I thought it just kept on
going.
generating new stuff.
Yeah.
And so she finished that, and I'm like, what do I do with her now? This
Yeah.
is a sixth grader, and I'm like, okay.
She finished all.
She finished all the iReady lessons.
How long? Like, how long are we talking?
I think she
When
finished
in
it
the
up
year?
like in February or March.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I don't know what to do with her anymore.
Yeah.
Whenever I tell them it's iReady time.
Yeah.
And so I had just finished up teaching ACT prep for a year. So I pulled old copies of the ACT. I'm like, hey, here, take this. She made a perfect score on the reading section of the ACT. And I'm
Say that. Time out. She didn't miss one
she did
question
not miss a single question
on the reading.
on the practice ACT. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so me and some other teachers were going to try to figure out how we could get her into the School of Mississippi School of Math and Science.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like we started writing all of these different recommendations.
Uh-huh.
We tried to get some grants written so that once she left the 8th grade, she would be able to go to MSMS
Yeah.
after that. And I don't think it ever happened. I think
Yeah.
some different things fell through. But it's one of those things where it's like this is insane.
Yeah.
And then more recently this year, we're a really redneck school.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my kids have just that really long Southern drawl.
Southern drawl. Yeah. Yeah.
And there was one kid who I could barely understand him because of that Southern drawl. But one of the very first days, like I was asking some different questions, like we were digging into a text, and he just goes on and on with this answer. I'm like, that's insanely insightful.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you had that in there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like,
He's surprised.
yeah, he surprised me
Yeah.
entirely, and I love those moments, especially when students prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Like if I tell them something and they're like, Mr. Bates, I don't think that's quite the answer. It's so different. Like it feels great when students correct me.
Really.
I feel like they're learning.
Yeah,
you know?
that's interesting because
So I guess it's not much so Jedi; it's more so Sith.
Okay.
Because they're always trying to outdo the master.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
it
The
is
dark side. Okay, so and that's interesting you said it because and when you get to this level, there are some teachers that are kind of not intimidated but don't want to be corrected sometimes.
Right.
And there are a lot of teachers who are fine with it, and you're one of them.
Yeah.
So, like, what have you ever had like when you were in school, one of those moments where you were just like, okay, I am fearful to speak to this teacher on this type of level, even though I know that they're not really teaching this right? Like, have you had those?
So I was seriously shy in
Okay.
school.
Okay.
And I didn't really, like come out of my shell until high school, and I started doing theater.
Nice.
And then nobody could believe that I was that guy on stage. That shy kid from middle school was actually on stage.
You think you miss your calling as an actor?
No, because I see what actors go through.
Okay,
and
all right.
Every now and then I'm like, what if? And then I think, what if I could be a voice actor? Voice acting,
Yeah.
maybe, who knows?
Okay.
Like doing announcing work and stuff like that. But, I had those moments in high school when I had one teacher, the mythology teacher, Greek
Okay.
mythology,
Mm-hmm.
and she was just saying something that I knew was horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Even though there's all these different myths that are conflicting with one another,
Mhm.
some of them, we're able to piece together, and we know like this is what the ancient Greeks believed their myths were.
Yeah.
And she was saying one thing that was just completely wrong,
Mhm.
and I couldn't work up the courage to tell her. And so I just kind of sat there and
Really?
just watched the lesson go on.
Wow. Okay. So I think that, the dynamic between teacher and student is always changing subtly, and I think, the best teachers, the greats, are the ones that can recognize, those dynamics really quickly and sort of, turn them in their favor. So when you look at, let's say, like you were talking about with English, when a student comes in and they're just like, look, this is dumb, I don't need it.
Mhm.
And you're able to go, well, mortgage,
Yeah.
contract. Those are the things those quick responses are the things that will capture a kid for the rest of the, year. So when you talk about like the beginning of the year, trying to capture that mind, do you have certain things that you try to do early in order to capture the class? Like,
Yeah, so what I've started doing in the last couple of years,
Mhm.
at the very beginning of the school year, I know that kids are going to have 1,000 different questions about me.
yeah,
Like, what's your first name? Are you married? How tall are you? How
Yeah.
tall are you? How tall are you? That's the one that
you
I
forgot
get.
how tall are you?
Yeah. So I know you can't tell on the video because I'm sitting down, but I'm 6'5", and I usually wear boots a lot, and so like
Wow.
I'm usually hitting about 6'7", like in the classroom. And teaching 5th and 6th grade, that was like I was sometimes over 2 times their height, and so it's
Woo.
like, they were always asking me that. But kids have 10,000 questions about
Yeah.
the teacher in the very beginning.
hmm
So what I do is I make a PowerPoint, not just like telling them about myself because that's boring. So I make a PowerPoint of all of these different questions about me, and then I let them try to guess the answer.
Nice.
So like
Okay.
with how old am I? I actually told them wrong this year. I sat there the entire day telling them, yeah, I'm 28.
Hey, nothing
No,
wrong with
I'm 27. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that until my 6th period of class.
that.
Like I forgot how old I
You
was.
forgot how you
I forgot how old I was.
You've
Yeah.
been doing this a while.
Yeah, and so like, are you married? I'm like, yeah, I actually just got married 2 months ago, and
Congratulations.
so it's actually about to be 3 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a couple of days it'll be 3 months,
Nice.
and but like I'm letting them know that I'm letting them guess like where would Mr. Bates like to travel one day?
Okay.
What different things does Mr. Bates like to do? And that's when I first tell them like I'm into hiking, video gaming, all of these thousands of different things.
Okay, nice. And so you incorporate them into the journey
Yeah.
instead of just giving them the answer.
Yeah, I let them try to guess because that always is fun with them.
Okay.
And then I always mess with them. Like I always put like some crazy answer on the board for how old is Mr. Bates,
Mhm.
like 62, something like that.
Yeah.
And whichever students choose the 62, I always go over to them. I'm just like, I know who's failing my class now.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like just engaging them into it, and then like
Yeah.
it's the little things.
Mhm.
There was another day, one of the students is like, "Hey, Mr. Bates, got something to tell you." So I walked over to him. I'm standing on his left side. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit deaf in my left ear.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I don't know if he's being serious or not. And so I stood up, I walked around to his right side, I looked at him straight in the face, I said, okay. And just kept on walking. And it took him a second to realize like I'm messing with him.
Yeah.
Like I specifically walked around to his right
To
side.
make sure, yeah.
And so it's those little bitty tiny interactions throughout the day that I might forget in 2 or 3 years, but by the time they're in high school, I want them to remember that teacher that changed their life.
Nice. Yeah. So, trying to get, reactions and, culture and all that stuff. Like, have you found a difference in how you have to communicate with like different socioeconomic backgrounds or different, like races of people or anything? Have you had any like things that were sort of like difficult to deal with, or just it's just every student to you just same, you just go about it, it is what it is?
So I've always taught at a school that's just been massively different socioeconomically.
Okay.
And so and honestly, I can't tell the difference with students most of the time. I'm not really looking for it.
Yeah.
I'm looking for, what the students give me in the classroom.
Nice.
But this is the first year, though, that I've taught at a school that's not 100% black. And so I'm starting to see not differences in the way that I talk, not differences in the way that I teach, because once again, they're all just students. They're all just children that they need that help.
Yeah.
And so I really don't, change up any of my instruction. I don't change up anything.
That's good.
Every single one of my classes gets I don't want to say the exact same thing, because we're supposed to differentiate.
Well,
So every single one of them get the exact same Mr. Bates throughout the entire day,
That's good.
no matter what student.
Nice.
And that's why I have the expectations in my classroom, so that I can turn right around and I say, this is the expectation that you were not following. Or sometimes I say, go read my third expectation, because kids put their hands on each other all the time. And
It is what it is. Yeah.
and so there's not much difference in what I do. It might be received differently based on experience and based on background, but I do try to go back and if I do see a student struggling at something, I do try and go and help them in that area.
Nice. Okay. So what year is this of you teaching?
This is my 6th year.
6th year. So what is the biggest thing that you have learned, up until now, that has helped you just get through the year? What's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
So this is something that I tell new teachers too, and it took me until my 4th or 5th year to get it.
Okay.
And that's pick your battles. I cannot tell you how many other teachers I've seen flip out over the smallest of things, like a student having a cookie out on the desk.
Yeah.
I tell my students, I don't care if you have snacks. I got snacks in my third drawer over there.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull out a snack and eat it every now and then.
Yeah.
But if it becomes a distraction, then we put it up. I don't flip out over little things, like a student just getting up and walking to go throw something away. You've got to really figure out what are the different things that you are going to harp on. What are the different things? Because if you spend all of your teaching time yelling and going off on the littlest of things, whenever there is a big issue that comes up, the students are not going to be able to tell the difference.
That's very insightful. That is very insightful, man. Well, listen, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Of course.
Really appreciated this interview. And we wish you luck. Principal Bates one day.
Yeah, Principal Bates one day. So my dad was a principal for about 20 years, and he was a teacher for about 15 years before that. I might be getting my dates wrong, my numbers wrong somewhere, but when he first started teaching, his mother-in-law, my mom's mom, gave him a little nameplate, a name tag, and he kept that same one with him for 30 years and said Coach Bates on the front. And recently he got it remade to, instead of say Coach Bates, it says Mr. Bates for me. And so I've got his
that's nice.
I've got his nameplate from 30 years ago, and if I become a coach, I'll flip it to the side that says Coach Bates.
Yeah.
Once I become a principal, I'm going to flip it to the side that says Principal Bates.
Nice.
So,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, man. Well, like I said, thank you so much for sitting down and taking the time.
Of course. I mean, this was so much fun.
Yeah, this is great, man. Now, be sure, guys, to subscribe. Be sure to like also. You hear the background. We're at a school. This is the end of the day. This is how it is.
So we have a football game today, and that's all the cheerleaders. They're getting ready to go to the game, and they're quieter than normal, actually.
Well, thank you. Yeah, nice. So let me the last question. We'll predict the score. Go ahead.
I'm going to say 45-10.
45-10 for you guys.
For us,
Okay,
yeah.
nice.
We're gonna give up one touchdown and we're gonna give up one field goal.
Nice.
It's gonna be 45-10.
Okay, nice. Thank you so much again for tuning in with us. I'm Vincent Kirkland. This is Mr. Bates, and this is Real Folk Mississippi. See you guys next time.